I'm working on that now.
What chair you sit in? Yeah, this one's the one. Yeah, this one. I thought it was checked over that way.
Can anybody hear Margaret?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good, good. Just wanted to be sure.
That's at least like 3 minutes. So we were just talking about moving back in the chair, just click from my hand.
Okay.
That could be why they're having public hearing us.
Okay, we're live on YouTube. And Bob, when you're ready, I'll start recording.
Start.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Ganusi. I'm Vice Chair for the Planning Commission. And I'll be chairing the meeting tonight because our permanent chair, Andy Miller, is on remote today. But he is attending the meeting. So with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order at, it's like 6:31 p.m. And now, can I have a roll call, please? Philip Vanderhill.
Joy McCoy. Katie Souls.
Arnold Quinn.
Andy Miller.
Margaret Bowles.
And Bob Ganusi.
I just got a chat from Ed, so it's hard to hear you. I'll make the speaker a little bit closer. Okay.
All right, Ed, is that a little better? Okay,
Yes, thank you.
all right. First of all, do we have a motion to approve the agenda for the evening?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the meeting is now approved, and we will now move into a motion for the consent agenda, which you should have had. That's the minutes of the meeting of November 23rd, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the consent agenda. Should approve the minutes.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. So tonight, we have one thing on the agenda to talk about. It's a public hearing and possible action on Victoria Village height restriction regulation. So at this point, I would like to have a motion to open the public hearing regarding Victoria Village height regulation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any opposition, the public hearing is now open. I'd like to also say that there has been legal publication notice, and it was provided to you in the packet for the minutes or for the meeting tonight. So first of all, let me start with Julie Esteri from Baseline, who will present to the commission the planner's recommendation. Julie?
Okay. Thank you, Bob. The presentation. Oh. Okay, so Michael Brack asked me to present this since he's out today. And he prepared the staff review packet. This is for the Victoria Village District Amendment. And it's only regarding the height restriction or the maximum height regulation district. So the request is to amend this specific section. I'll just read it for the record. It's chapter 19, article 2, division 2, section 19-2-65. That's the Victoria Village Overlay District. Subsection C, district standards. And in table 2.11, there's a maximum height that's currently set at 45 feet. This proposed amendment would change the maximum height to 55 feet. Background on this is in regards to Victoria Village Overlay District itself, which was established in 2018 to promote attainable housing in Fraser. And the district already provides reduced setbacks, light areas, and floor areas. Recently, last year, the town acquired the Victoria Village property. And then the town selected Mountain Affordable Housing LLC to develop the property. And Michael was in communications with the developer, and they had asked, they've been through the code, and I think that the zoning regulations look good for their ability to develop this with affordable housing in a cost-effective manner, except for the building limitation. And so we're asking if there was an opportunity to increase that to 55 feet. And that is what has brought us here today. This is a map showing the location of the Victoria Village. I think most people are familiar with where it's located. North part of town, right off the Highway 40. And these are a couple, the next two sheets are a couple of images from the Alta that was performed, which is a survey of the existing conditions. Big gray area there is the wetlands easement. And then this is the southern portion of the lot, which has been previously platted for, looks like single family homes, so that will be replatted during the process. So the notifications were published. The one for this meeting was published on January 12th. If you move this with a recommendation to the board, that has already been scheduled for February 15th. That will be posted tomorrow on January 26th for that meeting. So Michael presented three options for you in the packet. The first one was to approve the resolution as written, which increases the height, the maximum height in the Victoria Village overlay district to 55 feet. His second option for you is if there's discussion that the overlay district requires other changes, that you could amend the resolution and make a motion based on an amended resolution. And then the third option is to recommend as part of the town board not amend the Victoria Village overlay district at this time. Michael and myself agree that the height increase would bring benefits, allowing the lower development cost per unit and lowering the associated AMIs as a result. So we recommend the approval of resolution 2023-0101 to allow for more flexibility to design and provide more affordable attainable housing. And as a note, the community engagement and master planning process will be starting up in February, March of this year.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to go around the room and hear from our commissioners as to their thoughts on the presentation and motion before us. I can start with Bill, if you will be so kind.
Certainly, I'm gonna agree with the option number one is the best way to move forward. There's not, I mean, the only neighbors over there is the post office and so you're not really having any blocky views over there. And affordable housing, as we all know, is the highest priority for the town of Fraser and allows more and more affordable housing on that property. That's all I got.
Okay. Joy.
Yeah, my main concern was that it might impede some of the view of the Twin River condos or the area around it. And there was a notice in the paper about just this public meeting. Was there other notification with the neighbors in the area about any changes?
No. Since this is a zoning code amendment, it affects the zoning code and not necessarily a specific property. In this case, it kind of does affect this specific area of town because Victoria Village overlay district is located kind of in a specific part of town. but the state statutes don't require mailed, notifications for a code amendment.
Okay. But you don't think it seems to affect the buildings nearby,
Oh,
the
yes.
neighborhood?
Well,
Well, I mean, it's gonna be, but. Okay, I guess that's the question at hand here, but
There is no, I mean, there's no residential. There's like very little residential on Park Avenue, and you're talking about the Twin Rivers condos, which are quite a ways away.
okay,
So.
yeah. That was my only concern.
All right, Katie, you have an opinion?
So, do you have I'm okay with going for 55 feet. But I'm not comfortable just saying, okay, we could do it on that whole parcel. Because, I've always had this thing about visual impacts from Highway 40. And I took a walk down there, yesterday on that. Did you walk down there too? You know, there's a little road that goes to the, wellhead. And it was interesting at first, and maybe you guys can tell me what it is. It might be this water line. Dedicated roadway, right away sanitary sewer, that the road kind of humps up and then it drops down and it looks like ground level is about 20 feet below Highway 40. So it'd be interesting to see how that would look. I personally would like to see that 45 limit kept on the buildings that are on Highway 40. And then anything that, if we got something that's set back in further, go ahead and be able to do that 55 feet. Or to allow the board at that time to decide where that 55 feet, that 55-foot building should go. And I'm assuming, which is always dangerous, that will be the housing, our actual workforce, deed restricted housing. Versus a lot of the other things that go on.
Yeah, so if you pass this, it doesn't mean that there won't be further review or the master planning will go through public comment. Then will come to you and be decided by the board. So you would still have the opportunity to make those comments. That's just a suggestion if you wanted to add an amendment to the resolution restricting the location of the heights of the buildings.
So
That's your,
so Michael said there were two options on that. And that second one. It just says increase the maximum height to 55 feet, but with additional recommended changes. So I guess could be a can of worms, like could be up or down.
yeah, it could be whatever
The way
you
that's
guys recommend and agree upon.
Oh, well, I'll listen to what everybody else has to say.
Or no?
So, think about what's in the town. What buildings do you know that are 45 feet tall? Just think about it. The building behind the Crooked Creek or the Fisher's Bar, 45 feet or 35 feet?
Those were 35, weren't they?
45.
They're 45.
Do you see them? Do you think about them when you drive through town?
No,
Not
but
really.
they're not on the highway.
They are on the highway. They're one building back.
Yeah, but yes.
They're 30 feet from the highway.
Okay.
How tall are the buildings that Grand Park is building for employee housing on Mill Avenue?
45.
45 feet.
Everything's going in now at 45 because that's our approved.
Right, so 10 feet above that isn't gonna change much. It doesn't change view corridors, it doesn't change what you're gonna see from the highway. When you come in through Winter Park, how tall is the? I can't
With
remember.
the
what's
dentist
the building.
office,
Yeah, the dentist
that one, I
office.
think that's a 55.
That's a 55-foot tall building. I believe it's 55, I might be off by 5 feet, but I think they said it was 55 feet when I stood up.
Well, it's interesting with that because it does sit lower.
It's only
And the
five,
highway.
it's only 5 feet below grade of the highway.
It's fine. A little bit.
I have a question for you, excuse me. Have there been other projects where that amendment has been made, that the height has been increased in the town of Fraser?
Grand Park has some height limits that are 55 feet. Rendezvous is asking for a variance to 55 feet, but I think they have 55 feet, but it requires commercial on the lower level. I know that all the people that are in the Riverwalk overlay would like to go to 55 feet. They've all mentioned that in the past.
All people, the potential developers.
No, people that own properties in those areas would like to see that go up to 55 feet. And they would like a density increase, and that's the one question I have on here. If we're doing a 55-foot building height increase, why aren't we doing an increase of density per acre? Instead of keeping it at 20, which was set in 1950s. 20 units per acre, why aren't we asking for a density increase so we can get more units, especially if we're not gonna come up with a standard unit or consider studio and 1-bedroom units as half or a third or a fourth of a standard unit. The standard in the United States is somewhere between 4 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. 2 to 4
Doesn't
bedrooms.
this already have density bonus because of the
It has a little bit of
Fraser Riverwalk district?
Yeah, because that overlays both, right?
Mhm.
Victoria Village has both the overlay district and
I believe so. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
I don't remember what that density vote was,
I'm gonna look at it.
and I couldn't find it when I looked for it. But those are my thoughts. The extra 10 feet is going to change anything that they get from the 45 feet from views or what you're going to see on the highway. You won't know the difference. You won't feel the difference. The 45 feet. or 55 feet.
Are they thinking that the density increase would be greater occupancy with the increase of height?
Yes. They'd be able to get more units on the property, basically because of the wetlands, from what I would. And those wetlands can be moved and improved and shrank, but they're definitely take up quite a bit of that lot. those wetlands.
And anything you read these days says that density is the solution to affordable housing.
That is correct.
So instead of urban sprawl, building small homes on large lots just is not gonna ever solve the problem. You have to have density and go up instead of out.
Those days are over.
The sprawl.
Well, the sprawl's
Large
not,
part, so
yeah, the sprawl's not over, but it's definitely more expensive.
Well, the sprawl is not affordable. It's
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Market.
Yeah, those are my comments.
Okay.
Bob?
Thank you, Parnell.
Good comments.
Andy, are you there? Would you like to comment?
Yeah, Parnell, I think, and Julie, maybe you know this, I think the overlay district already has an increase in density, doesn't it, when we did the rezoning?
Yeah, but I couldn't find it, Andy, how much they got.
Well, there's quite a bit, but anyway, that'd be worth looking at. I mean, I agree that, we'll be looking at more than 20 units to the acre here, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I did some research on that earlier today. And I was just pulling it up. I think Ed maybe he's unmuted and maybe wants to speak to it. I sent him an email about it. We didn't get to talk about it yet today, but Ed, would you like to speak on it?
Yeah, just real quick. I don't have the code in front of me. I'm at home right now, but and somebody would have to verify this. When they made the Riverwalk district and when they made the Victoria Village overlay district, they increased the density pretty significantly.
Yeah.
I remember, if you remember the Kozlik project when they came, this has been about a year ago. Catherine's briefing talked about what the maximum allowance. Somehow or another, I think 60 units per acre pops into my head, which is quite a bit more than you can get in other parts of the area. For example, if you look at the Muse Drive project, their density would only allow so much. But I think that's a great question.
I'm generally in favor of this. I do think we, in the layout of this, we could show some sensitivity to Twin Rivers there. And I've always thought that a street there that would connect 8 with the road by the post office there would make sense, and that would give some offset to the Twin Rivers folks to give them a little better little better view across there. They're really the only residential that are impacted, but I agree 100%. I mean, the solution to affordability is density. You know, we've got to, I'm glad that we're talking about parking and things of that sort too, because unfortunately, as we get denser and denser, that our highway doesn't get wider and wider. So I know there's going to be some problems there, but all this is, you know, I've been reading lately a lot of things about affordable housing and homelessness. And homelessness is actually the worst in blue states and in states that have funded homeless programs and have done all they can to help the homeless and help density, help affordable housing, except there's this huge pushback and not in my backyard, NIMBYs. And blue states are worse for that, as far as people that just don't want this type of housing anywhere near where they live. And so pretty soon that becomes anywhere. So it is interesting. San Francisco and the cities where you see the worst homeless problems are some of the most liberal cities in the country, and people that we would think would have great understanding for people that are challenged for housing, but they have understanding, but they don't want it anywhere close to where they live. So I just don't want to ever see us in that position. And so I'm in favor of this. I think that this is a good step towards trying to create some affordable housing in Fraser. So.
Okay, thank you, Andy. We have Margaret Bowles yet to hear from.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes, really good.
Okay, I actually live down that street, that Park Avenue. I live down at the end of that street, and so I do have some concerns, although they're not really related to the height. They're more related to access off of Park Avenue, which is already a problem. So my comments more have to do with the actual development and making sure that the access comes off of State Road 8 and not off of Park Avenue, because we can't get out of that road now. So with the increased in density and height, my concern has more to do with configuring the access to 40 so that people can actually get out of the post office. We can get out of my house. They can get out of Victoria Village. Those are my concerns. I don't have a problem with the height. It's not gonna affect us, but we do live down there, so we are impacted by what happens there.
And Margaret, to be clear, your issue is getting from Park Avenue onto the highway and down the highway, correct?
Yes, even a left or right hand turns right now are a problem. So, you know, if you have a whole bunch of cars coming out onto Park Avenue and trying to get onto 40, that's not going to be good for anybody. So that's my concern. I'm not that concerned with the height. I'm concerned with the density increase and access. So those probably will come up in February and March. Yeah.
To add that getting off of Easton's not easy, but getting off of County Road 8 is not easy either with our ski traffic or a lot of traffic coming in. So that whole section, Andy and I had, butted heads for years over doing roundabouts, and the expense of those are as much as the stoplight. So we might have to consider that as we do this project.
Yeah, thanks. That's really my comment. I mean, coming out of that post office, people come out and then they turn left on Park Avenue, and it's just a mess. It's a mess now. So I just want to make sure that gets addressed. It's a big issue, and I just want to make sure that gets addressed. But I don't have a problem with the height.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Second chances for any commissioners to continue discussion.
Yeah, the only other thought is, I know they're gonna have some for sale units in this project. Are we gonna be putting the for sale units at the top floors?
We'll find out.
Question.
Yeah. Can we chat just a little bit about those other things with this? One thing that has been an idea that came from Todd Holsworth was that block A right there on the corner of 8 and 40, in that general area. EMS really needs a new station versus the one that on Eisenhower, right in downtown. Right in that building. So right here on Eisenhower. They only have that, building in the back, right next to the brewery. And that building up front. Something to keep in mind that we might be able to trade them. Or something, and let them move in over there, would also necessitate putting in a light at that intersection. For emergency vehicle access. And we would have that lot of license to use for commercial. Would be really awesome, so something to just tuck away and then back to the boats.
Or a roundabout. No, I agree with Margaret. I mean, and I think one of our upcoming, hopefully, planning sessions, Parnell's talked about maybe some extra sessions, and one of them would be to review the CDOT plans for US 40, which are, Michael and I have been looking at and and I'd like to bring those to the table, because we've really got to look at what we're going to do, how we're going to handle capacity on 40, and the CDOT plans for 40 include a light or some kind of traffic control there at 8, which is going to be a necessity with all these extra people. Ed's got had his hand up for quite some time.
Yeah, first of all, these are great comments. A lot of good concerns being voiced, and I think that's important. But keep in mind that starting in February and March timeframe, we start a master planning process. And some of the questions, some of the concerns about access, building heights, setbacks, that will have to go through an approval process with a lot of public input. So that's, we don't know what's going to be built there. We had a conceptual in their request for qualifications that we asked for. What's built there, we don't know. It may look radically different from what was in their packet. But again, we have to go through that process, the master planning process. I think the planning commission members should be part of that process. I think the town board and the public needs to be very active in that as well. We also have some concerns about traffic density. And I think as we go through the master planning process, there'll be other areas that we may need to go back and tweak the Victoria Village overlay. For example, the whole purpose of bringing this issue to the planning commission tonight was that we didn't want to take a chance of getting into a contract and spending significant amount of monies for architectural design and drawing, and then having to run to the Board of Adjustments to possibly get a variance, which isn't quite as guaranteed as having that 55-foot level amended in our overlay district now. So they wouldn't have to come back for any kind of adjustments with a 50-50 or so chance of it getting approved.
Okay, thank you, Ed. So just keep in mind that the matter on the table tonight is the height regulation. All of these other comments, although they're very good, I understand it, Julie. If we choose option A, which is to pass the proposed resolution in front of us tonight, once we get through the planning process, it's going to come back to the planning commission again. It can be reviewed. We can make some changes then. So it's not a hard cast in stone thing. We're just saying that we're allowing 55 feet, but there may be conditions that we'll oppose later. That's what I understood. Now, on a personal note, my thoughts were that 55 feet didn't seem to be a big ask for me, because there's a lot of grade change across that side. And it was insinuated, I thought, through the staff recommendations in the report, was that part of the reason that going to 55 feet would help us has to do with the underground parking that's going to go along I-40. So, and it all depends on where you measure the 55 feet from. Do you measure the 55 feet from the highest point on the site, or the lowest point on the site on that edge of the building or structure that's being designed? And so it looks to me as though the grade change is significant across the site. So even going to 55 feet, I don't think, although in future meetings, when we see sketch plan, we might say, we'd like to see, what an elevation view would look like from the north side of the property up there at 55 feet.
Julie might know this, but I think it's 20 or 30 feet from the back of the building. Or the front of the building, or the side of the building that gives you your elevation.
So the lowest point on the site, on that side of the building is where you start.
Correct. So like up in Ptarmigan, those ones that are built on the hillside there, some had to go in and put in plateaus, build up retaining walls, because their buildings were too high. But I can't remember what the distance is. It's 20, 35 or 45, because between Winter Park, Fraser and County, I get.
So Julie, when you're nubbing around in there, it would be great if you found that. What that measurement is from.
The definition of building height, how you
Yeah.
calculate it, I can look it up. I
If
don't
not
know
for
it
now,
offhand.
for later, is when it'll really come in.
Yeah.
Play.
And then the whole project's deed restricted, even the cells are deed restricted to local housing, right?
That's a question for
Is
myself.
that how we put that?
105 have to be restricted, is my understanding.
Okay.
Number.
Yeah,
If you look at staff.
I'm trying to remember what it is. Yeah, so everybody's learning, yeah.
No short-term rentals.
Okay, any further discussion from commissioners? If so, we can now take public comments. And let me just set some ground rules. Those will be limited. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And you will only have one chance to speak. And if a person already has made a comment that you agree with, you can simply just echo your support for that. Just say, I agree with that person, and whoever the person was. So we'll try to get started, and do we have anybody's hand up? Public comments open.
Is anybody in the audience, if you could raise your hand, if you would like to speak?
Going once, twice. So we have no public comment
Correct.
online, and there's no public in the room here with us tonight. So with that, yes,
I'll make a motion. Before the public hearing.
I guess we can close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Second. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we need any further discussion amongst the commissioners, or are we ready to propose a motion to accept the proposal in front of us, which is that is the PC resolution 2023-01-01 Victoria Village Building Height Amendment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor, or say aye?
Further discussion.
Oh, further discussion. Sorry,
The only thing I would say is, as we approve this, because I'm all for it. I think we're gonna have quite a few people that are gonna ask for additional height on other properties that may have the same effect or little effect to other developments. Just know that's gonna be coming down. So. Cause I had some good comments, we can ask if they could get 55 feet on different lots.
I was worried about that. I feel more relieved because Margaret has some firsthand understanding of what it is to live on Park Avenue and the adjacent area. And so I guess we can encounter those instances with that thought of how is it affecting the surrounding areas.
Because as we do that, Old Town Fraser will start to be noticed from other areas, which would be good for us, because it might bring down more tourist dollars into Old Town. So I think it's good.
that's all. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question now. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And resolution is passed. Okay, the next thing is open forum for public comment on items not on the agenda for tonight, so. Since we have no public on the line or in the room, how about us? Do we have?
There's two public.
Oh, okay. All right, I thought you said there wasn't anybody on the line, or nobody raised their hand, I guess. What it is. Okay, all right, do we have any thing from the public as far as open agenda or open forum for comments on items, not on the agenda, but on of concern to you, public? No? Okay, how about for the commissioners?
The only thing I have is what Andy had mentioned earlier, having some additional meetings, so we have new people on the board, and we're gonna do planning department, and we should go over our rules and regulations, and make sure they're what we want, how we want them. We did a review 5 years ago, Phil,
I don't know.
and some of that got done, and some of it got rushed at the end, so I think we should go back to it and make sure it's the way we in the town think it should be.
And you're concerned about units being, how units are defined? What's
Well,
that part of?
I can give you one example. So one of the examples is that we had discussed that anything below 4 units or less, so a fourplex would be admin. You wouldn't have to go and get a plat and go through all that kind of stuff. At the admin level, they can take care of it. When you actually read the code, Julie, I think notice that it's 3 or less, that only duplexes fit into that category. It should really be 4 or less, is what we had talked about. It might have been 3 or less, but I think it's 4 or less. So something like that, just to make sure they're the way we think they should be.
So, I don't know, is the planning commission going through those, are going to be able to find that type of situation? I think it'd be more beneficial to ask developers. What issues have you found with the code since we changed the code?
That's a good idea.
Because I mean, I don't know, is that I'm not in the building. I actually own a short-term rental company.
Yeah, the only reason I mentioned that is
So I'm below the everybody else now is short-term rental.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Katie would know what kind of issues the development, or Joy, or you, or, so I think it'd be great to have
public.
public.
Yeah, I agree. And part of that is having meetings with them coming, and that's where we started last time, is the planning commission. We had all those workshops and then brought it to the board for final review.
So are you suggesting a workshop where we invite developers
Yeah, for sure.
Or have developers send in
And public.
public staff. I mean, if developers already know, we don't need to have a workshop, they can send an email to staff,
So is it-
staff and say, here's the issues that I've encountered since you made the code changes, and this would be great if this was this. And then we can review it.
Yeah, I saw that. I like that.
That's a pretty simple request too, just the issue they've had since we've made the code change.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds like an easy. You know,
I mean, some
do a
people may not. know the
survey.
difference.
I would suggest our new planning commissioners at least read through it.
Yes, I would too.
But for me to have extra meetings for us to sit in here and read through the codes again is not something that I would want to do. Sorry.
No, I agree. I've read through it, so multiple times. And I can point out some of the things I know that aren't quite right.
It's a lot of information, and I think what I'm curious about is who should I ask? I guess it would be on our planning commission board, but did you want to know, or what do you wish you would have known when you joined the board that you know now, that I might not? If you can like expedite my learning process, because for me, I'll remember the code that's attached to the meetings that we have. But the rest of it, I'm gonna read it, but not retain that information, so. I ask, but
Well,
can I do that?
Right, and as a planning commission, I believe we should be planning out where we want the town to go and helping with the 3 mile plan and all that kind of stuff, really planning it out. Since I've been on the planning commission, it should actually be called the reactionary commission, because we don't do anything until something's put in front of us. You know, Catherine tried her best to get us to have some meetings and do some thought planning, what we do want. So like Victoria Village, which we've had this talked about 5 years ago, what we do want there, right? And instead of today, we have to react to what we need to build there. So just something to think about, that if we're gonna be the planning commission, we should think about how we want to plan the town out and how do we want to bring people in. We have some annexations that might be happening in the near future, so we want to make sure we're on top of that as well.
Great idea.
I'd be up for that.
Ed has his hand up.
Okay, Ed?
Sorry, I'm chiming in again. Great comments, everyone. Good concerns. If you recall, in 2017, 2018, the town went through a very extensive process to review the land development code and made a lot of changes during that time. I wasn't around then, but many of you were. I'm sure that was a big public process. And it takes a lot of thought, and I agree, we shouldn't be reactionary. We should think carefully and critically about any changes to our development code. No, I think that's some good points brought up there. You know, and going along with Victoria Village, we're going to have a lot of these discussions when we go through the master planning process.
And we'll find out a lot of our issues in the zoning.
That transportation plan for our town, I think that's great. To try to get that kind of laid over. Or we're gonna move traffic, it's not on Highway 40.
Right.
Isn't there another site that the East Grand Fire District is kind of being placed, like the yard area?
They've
And
talked
They
about it.
talked about it? Okay, I just kind of get a vision.
All right, any other items in open forum? Discuss. If not, I'll move on to other business, and we have a planning commission meeting that's been called and planned for Wednesday, February the 8th. We want to be sure that we will have a quorum there. And who's going to chair the meeting, because I understand that Andy is going to be out of town on the 8th. And that is also the Grand County Planning Commission first meeting of the year on the 8th. So who would chair that meeting if both of us are not here? And will we have a quorum? That's something we need to decide tonight.
I'll be here.
I'll be here. I mean, I'll be in Fraser, actually.
I'll be here.
There's your quorum.
Mhm.
All right, so we do have a quorum, but we may have to get a pinch hitter for chair position for that meeting.
So I can't do the chair, depending on, because I've been added into emails with Ed from Mike Zeeler, who's the developer. So that would put me in a position not of necessarily a conflict of interest, but I have to disclose that I've read emails and his concerns of how the town's moving forward and fighting and all that.
I could share, I've shared before,
Okay,
if I'm allowed
Mhm.
to fill in.
all right, with that out of the way. Do we have any future agenda items that we want to discuss and put on the agenda for coming meetings?
That's what we just discussed.
So, all right, so we jumped ahead and we've got that covered. Okay. So that's all we have. Plan to plan.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
is there also another meeting at the end of February, the last Wednesday of February?
That would be our norm.
About our normal one. So
Yeah.
the-
I don't-
The eighth
what
is
is the
in
date on
addition.
that?
The 25th.
25th?
Mhm.
Okay.
So we're having a special
I don't know.
meeting on the 8th and then the regular meeting. 25th.
I don't understand your comments, to be honest, right now. So you're gonna set up at the table, but you can't chair.
Well,
What's the difference between?
I mean, I
sitting-
might be able to share. I just, Ed had mentioned that I had had some conversations with Mike Sears, emails that he had brought. Different issues, things that are going on.
Because I don't
things, but
think it precludes you from, if you're gonna set up a table.
Well, I
you could either set up the table or you don't.
yeah, so I could share possibly, but
Okay.
I don't know how that works
Well,
with, since I
okay.
couldn't be the head of the planning commission or the assistant. I don't know if I'm allowed to chair because I wasn't appointed by the
Neither was
mayor or
Katie.
something.
Right, this summer wasn't.
Neither was Katie, so.
Yeah, so I don't know. So if it doesn't matter, I'm happy to share.
Just a point of order that I'm not sure about. I know how it works in Grant County. But if you are chairing the meeting, you don't vote.
Right, that's the other part of it.
Yeah, so
unless it's
you
a
wouldn't be
hybrid.
voting on anything that you've had,
Unless it's a tiebreaker.
unless you have to break a tie, right?
For now,
I don't, either way, I'm fine.
I was just trying to clarify.
No, that's a good point. I'm just letting
It
you know.
makes sense.
I thought you would just be a facilitator, but you
Yeah,
don't. vote.
Ed used a fancy word that I couldn't remember, some kind of communication quasi something.
So what do you think, Ed?
So Parnell and I had a discussion yesterday. He has been involved with Mike Zeeler on the side. Mike Zeeler, for whatever reasons, has also included Parnell on most of his email communications with the town and so forth. And Parnell has even made some calls to Baseline on Mike Zeeler's behalf. Now, the Planning Commission is a quasi judicial board, which means that you run it essentially like you would a trial. And there's an aspect called ex parte communication, which Parnell has been involved with because he's been intimately involved with this. And there's two ways to approach that. Number one, we could recuse himself, even though he doesn't necessarily have a conflict of interest. And the second is he could expose and reveal all of that ex parte communication. But that communication has been going on for about 4 or 5 months. So that would be pretty daunting to try to summarize all of that ex parte participation. The easiest solution would be for Parnell to recuse himself. And if he does recuse himself, he can't even participate in the discussions. Whether he's sitting in the chair role, but he can't participate in the discussions. And that's what recusing means.
And the reason I'm involved in discussions is the company I used to work for, which is EXP Residential, because I'm on the commercial, which is a different company, had sold him a lot back in the day when he bought it. So that's why he includes me on stuff that he's talking about.
So is this Mike that has the lot right behind us?
Yeah, he's the one that bought the lot over there on
News.
News.
Okay. Is he the only thing that's on that agenda?
Yeah, we had some struggles. We were trying to move his project along. There were some communications issues about ADA. We had to go back and forth and get some opinions. And resolving some of those questions slipped that notification time period. And instead of waiting and pushing them off another 30 days, because time is money, I made a few calls and sent out some emails to see if we would have a quorum for a special meeting, mainly as a favor to the developer so he can kind of keep on track and not push this, like I said, not push it off 30 days. It was supposed to be on tonight's meeting, but couldn't do the notification.
And the reason I don't think there's any kind of conflict or that I need to recuse myself is he's not asking for anything outside of what is allowed by the zoning and rules and regulations. There's no conflict. It's not like we're asking for extra units or he's asking for zoning to be changed or anything like that.
I'm not telling you to recuse yourself, but I think that should be your decision.
Right, and that's why I'm saying I don't think I should need to recuse myself.
You're the one that get into trouble.
That's correct.
Right.
All right, well, that concludes everything that we have on the agenda for tonight. So do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:20 PM?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Meeting adjourned.
Be safe out there, Mr. Miller.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and take care.
Thank you.
Good job, Bob.